away.
Thank you, Angel. As Angel stated, today's webinar, we're going to be focusing on the handhelds interface with SMS, both the PDA option and the Mfloor options. We're going to be looking at some best practices while utilizing these two, as well as some general configuration changes that are available for both that can help you operate more smoothly when you're using these. Up on the screen, I do have both the PDA option and the Mfloor option. PDA is on the left and Mfloor is on the right. I'm going to be focusing on the PDA option first, so I'm going to just go ahead and minimize and bring up this. I'm going to zoom in. These are designed to be running on a handheld unit, so they are a little bit smaller. If I am zooming in a little bit, it may distort this a little bit, but that way you can see better what the options are that are available. So to begin with, for both interfaces, you always need to log in. Just like with SMS, we always need to go into login. And it's going to bring us to our main menu. The main menu options will vary depending on the operator that is logging into the handheld. You can give them access to certain modules and not have access to others based on the level tied to their operator. So level 2 operator may only be able to do verification and no maintenance or inventory, and a level 5 operator is your manager. They would be able to do maintenance and purchasing and receiving. So what they have access to will dictate what's showing in this menu. I have access to everything as a programmer level, so we can show everything. So to start with, just some best practices when you're using the handheld. Up at the top, we have the verification, maintenance, and tasks. These three tie together pretty nicely when you're doing item maintenance on the handheld, so you can easily go between these three different options. Right below that, we have inventory. That is a high usage module that's used on the handhelds. When you're doing inventory counts and inventory adjustments, it's a lot easier to be able to have a mobile device to be able to count those items and or adjust the items. And then right below that, purchasing, receiving, and delivery. Same idea with those, with the inventory module, that these much easier to do when you have a mobile device, that you're not having to bring a laptop or a workstation back to be able to do these specific behaviors. So they are all available on the PDA to be able to utilize. And they are all tied together down here. So to start with some best practices, I'm going to focus on the maintenance part to begin with. Verification, if they are using the verification module, it will just give you a little information on the item and it's not able to be modified. So if you're going around and you're scanning items with the verification, you'll notice that they are not editable screens. So this is something, again, like you may want to give to some of your employees that are just going to go around, scan some items and validate the information, but not be able to change the information. So they can check the prices, they can check the cost, and some other key flags on here, like your taxability or subdepartment. If they do notice something is incorrect and they have the ability to, instead of having to go back to the main menu and go into modification, at the bottom, you're able to navigate between those three. You can navigate between verification, modification, and tasks. So you can easily go into modify and modify that item. If they need to modify the price, they have to select what price they need to modify. If they need to modify any other information, the general information, or if they need to go into cost, they need to select those specific buttons to be able to pull up those tables. The reason why is that there is just a limited amount of room on the screen with the handhelds. So with the PDA option, it is limited to what is showing only on the screen. So if they need to do any sort of modification, in order to be able to edit the field and see the fields they need to know exactly what they need to modify. So they can go into regular price and then they bring up all of the options that you have to modify with the regular price. So you can see, looking at this, it's not just the price. They can modify the package price, the quantity, discount, mix and match, and the price method. You need a little bit more room to be able to allow the operator to click in these fields and type in the number that they need to modify it to. So if they can go back and they can go into the general, and then they can go in and edit, maybe the description was incorrect, maybe the tax flag was incorrect. The limitation with the PDA is just the size of the screen. So that what they did is they broke it into different pieces so that that way you can have all the options you need. You just have to select what you need to modify. And that's how it's nice when you're going back and forth between the verification and the modification that you have the buttons available here. You can, of course, go back to the main menu and go all the way here and go into maintenance and then have to rescan the items and go into that. But this down here gives you that flexibility to go between them without having to go back and forth. Going back to verification, we'll go into the tasks. That's the other one that ties in nicely to this. Going into the task is anything specific that you would like to do with the item beyond maintenance. So if you would like to be able to print a label, you can print a label from the item. If you wanted to do like a store scan to verify, that's here. Put the item in a batch, those batch options are here, or look at some analysis from the movement for that item. The ones that we do run across quite a bit is the instant label and the print label. There's a little bit of confusion with this. The instant label will go and create a label batch in the back. So if you go into instant label, you will just go in here, you pick your label template, and then which price you would like to print. I only have a regular price on this item, so I print the regular, and it will go add this item to a batch in the back office that can then be gone and printed later to a sheet at a Lexmark printer or other type of printer. The print label is designed to be able to print immediately. It's a little confusing with the verbiage. It's always something that comes up. So if you're going to print a label and you have a mobile printer that you're carrying around, you want to be able to print to, you would use the print label option. So if you go into print label, you would be able to pick your label template right here and what printer you're printing to. There is question marks right next to it. So if you don't know the name of it, you can go ahead and select those. There is always 4 portable printers available. This can be expanded, but by default, there's always 4 portable printers. So if you do have more than one, you can select which printer there is. And then you just go ahead and print, and it will instantly print a label from that printer, and you can put that label on the shelf. It's a common question that comes up with those two is the difference between the instant label and the print label. That's the big difference between them is the print label is meant to be print right away from a mobile printer. The instant label creates a batch in the back that you go with the sheets. The other modules available on the PDA, inventory is a big one that comes up a lot, as it is a lot easier to go and do your inventory counts from the PDA. When you go into the inventory module, you do have an inquiry option so that they can just scan an item and see how much they have on hand of that specific item. The rest of it is very similar to the idea that we have in the back, where you are going to create a document. You can open up an existing document, or you can create a new document, just like you can in the back, to be able to do whatever behavior you would like, a multiple count or an adjustment. There is some configuration that can assist you when you're doing this. So if you're going to do a multiple count or an adjustment, you can come in, create your document, same as in the back, you would have to input your date for the adjustment, and then you're going to scan your items. So I'm just going to go ahead and stay with my 123 code, and then how many units would you like to adjust? If you happen to notice, after I scan my item, I know I'm not exactly scanning an item, I'm hand keying them in, it is staying at the top. That is a configuration setting. If you would like, when you're scanning an item, to have the cursor go to a different field, that is something that can be configured. If you are looking to do it on the handheld itself, you are going to look down and right where it says INV, inventory, go back into your inventory. And this is going to bring you to the header of your document. You can, again, same as any other document you're doing in the back, you can add items, suspend the document, do an item inquiry. If you click on more, you can close the document, change the date. And then down here, you have configuration. If you go into configuration, this is where you can dictate how you would like the system to behave when you're in this specific module. So this is your inventory module on the PDA. Your 0 would, after you scan, POS after scan. 0 would keep it in the UPC field. 1 will put you in the unit field. 2 will put you in the case field. And then your default quantity will dictate what quantity you want to have in that field by default. So 0, 1, 2, if you want to have it, go ahead and go to a default. Why you may want to make these changes. Some people would like it to go right to the unit. If they're in a store environment where everything's counted by unit, that makes sense. If you're in a store that primarily sells by cases, you may want to have it go to the cases. You would just go ahead and input 2. If you are having an issue perhaps where after somebody scans an item and they're in a count and they continue to scan another item, you may want to keep it in the UPC field. The reason being is that if you are putting it in the unit field after scan, which is absolutely fine, it's one way to set this up, but if you are, when the associate or the employee is going through and they're scanning the items, and it goes down to the unit field like now it is right now, and they scan the next item, and that big long UPC is now an adjustment. So they scan the item, they didn't realize it's going to the unit field, and they scan the next item. It can make a large count or a large adjustment depending on what kind of document you are in. So that is something that you can configure. That is something that you can look at when you're using the handheld. These options are also available in the other documents that I was looking at. So I'm just going to go ahead and suspend this document. If you were on the other webinar we had about inventory, suspending the document means that it can be reopened. Somebody else can go back and go ahead and modify that. If you're looking at the other ones, purchasing, receiving, DSD, or deliveries, these also behave the same as in the back and also have those same types of configuration settings that are available in the inventory so that you can adjust how you would like the system to behave. So for example, I'll go into receiving, and I'm going to go ahead and open document means you'll open up an existing document. A new document means you'll create a new document, but we're going to look at the configuration. So the configuration has those same ideas where after you scan an item, where would you like that cursor to go? Do you want it to stay in the UPC field? Do you want to go into the quantity field? The default quantity, do you want to have a default quantity of 1 or default quantity of 0 or something else? And then the other option that's available in the receiving, in the purchase order, and the DSD is go to item line. What this does is that if you are scanning an item in the receiving, purchase order, whatever document, and you scan 2 or 3 more items, then you scan that same item again, because maybe you have 2 cases coming in on the receiving document. Do you want it to go to that same item line, and you just adjust the same item line? So that way, if you're scanning my energy drink, as I've been using as an example, and I go and I scan 2 or 3 other things, and I scan another energy drink, it won't show up as 2 separate lines. Go to item lines mean it will show up as 1 item line, and you can count the case again. The other nice thing about this is that you can save the profile. So if you have these settings for one person and another person works better with different settings, you can save the profile. You can name it after whatever you would like. You can name it after the person. You can just do one enter, which will mean default, which means anybody gets this that doesn't have a profile assigned to them. And then you can go back and assign these profiles to the operators. So going back, I'm going to show you how that happens in SMS Pro and where you can also access all these settings in Pro. So I'm opening up SMS Pro, and this is the profile PDA. This is my default profile PDA where all my settings are that are default. So these were the ones that I just went over in the inventory, the POS after scan, the default quantity, the PO settings, and the POS after scan, default quantity, and the go to item line. This is where you can set them in the back. You can also do a little bit more settings back here. You can dictate which instant label and print label you would like to come up by default. This does not mean it's the only one available. It just means it's the one that will auto-populate. And you can also pick which printer is going to be by default in here. Up here, you can also set some lookup orders. What this allows you to do is when you're scanning items, you can see as I'm hovering over it, you can dictate what order you would like to look up items by. And if you want to be able to look up items by multiple ways. 1 is your UPC, 2 is alternate code, and 3 is vendor code. So this way, if you are scanning an item, it will do UPC, then alternate code, then vendor code. If you have somebody who's only using vendor codes, you can set up a new profile for somebody that just has a 3 in here, or alternate codes, or just UPC numbers. Whatever works best, you can set up in here. You can also have a default price level, but the big one that we also get a question about is your prompt to create. If they are scanning items on the floor and they scan an item that doesn't exist, do you want them to be able to create the item on the floor with the handheld? It will prompt them to create it. So you can check mark that on and off. Again, you can have multiple profiles. So I'm looking at the default profile, but if I wanted to create a new one, I have a grocery and a default one, but if I wanted to create a new one, we'll just call it, come up here and we'll just give it a name of, we'll just say deli. Doesn't have to be a deli, could be, again, any name that you want to give a profile. You can come up and you can set all these settings however you would like for that specific person or that specific role. And then you would just go assign it to them. It's in the operator record. So if you're going into system operator, you can go into the operator record you would like to assign it to, go into more details. This is what that profile is right there. This allows you to assign this profile to this operator number. So when they go in there, they can have the settings that they would like or that you think would work best for them. To access this profile PDA, it's under the maintenance right here. And then over here under the utility dropdown, it's called Profile PDA. So we're going to switch away from the PDA. So went over some best practices on navigating and how to set up the profile. And we're going to switch over to the Mfloor. So I'm going to exit out of my PDA and we're going to switch over to the Mfloor interface. So Mfloor is the new option for handhelds that's available from Lock SMS, and it behaves the same idea where you have to log in, same idea where you're logging into the application, and it's going to bring up all of the modules that are available on the handheld. And again, you can dictate what this employees can see based on their access level. So they could come in and just see products and verification, buying module, inventory module. You don't want them to see that and have access to it. It won't show up in here. But I'm logged in as my programmer level, so we have access to everything. It's a very different interface with the Mfloor, but behind the scenes, there's a lot of the same ideas on how you can use this and how the modules work with it. So products is really taking the place of maintenance. Buying modules is where all your receiving, DSD, and purchase orders are located now. Inventory module is where your inventory documents and your inventory inquiry is. Selling module, if you are going to be using this for line busting or selling. And then the manager module, if you're wanting to do cash drawers, pickups, or anything like that on the handheld, that is available as an option as well. Going through the best practices for this, using this for maintenance is usually one of the #1 reasons you're using a handheld. So going into your products, there is a little bit more selection now. You can just scan an item right here at the top. You can also do a quick search or an advanced search looking for items. So you can search by description. This will bring up a list of all the items. You can also go through and do an advanced search, which gives you a little bit more flexibility to search for brand, description, aisle, category if you're wanting to look for another search for an item in another way. We're just going to go ahead and use the item code. So you'll notice I'm not having to select verification or modification yet. We're just going to be scanning in the item. And it's going to bring you right to the verification screen. This is a little bit different, obviously, than the PDA. You have the ability to scroll up and down now with the Mfloor, so there can be a little bit more information on the screen. So you can kind of click and drag up and down. You kind of push up and down with that. The same idea, however, does go with this as with the PDA, where you can go into verification, and if there's something that needs to be changed, we can modify it right from here. There's this little icon at the top with 2 pages, we'll say, in it, and you click on that, and this is where you can now navigate between those 2 different kind of maintenance interfaces, the verification and the actual modification. So you can select right here, main item, POS, price table, or cost record, whatever it is that you need to modify. It's a little bit more general because you can fit more information on the screen. So if we're going into price, which is one of the usually more used modules, you can see now I have my regular price, my TPR price, and my sale price all on one. So I can easily go through and not have to remember, oh, did I want to adjust the regular price or not? You will get all the options right here. And it has all of those fields that we looked at before. So I can change the discount, I can change start date, end date, package price, limited price, mix and match method, and all of that on all of these in one screen. You can also go through and adjust the shelf location and alternate code, and you can go back to the verification right there. The same idea also is here with the tasks. So the little gear icon right here will have it so you can go back and forth between what was mostly available under the task with the PDA. So you can go into the instant label and the print label, and you can also deploy changes from right here, which is something that's a little more hidden on the PDA option. It's available right here. So that way, if your employee is making a price change, they can go ahead and deploy that. It'll go down to the front end pretty much right away. So that way you're not having to go back and forth between the menus to navigate. If you're going into these, you can see the instant label, the print label, it looks pretty much exactly the same as it did on the PDA. You select the label template and the label quantity. And then the same idea, if you're going into the print label, you're going to go ahead and have that all set by default and go ahead and pick your label and pick your printer and go ahead and print. I think this is a little nice. It does change it from just the print button to now it's the print icon. So that is the same idea where you can go ahead and smoothly navigate. The other thing that's nice is if you're looking down at the bottom of the screen, I know it's probably a little hard to see as I'm sharing my screen, these are being kept open as tabs. So you can actually go back and forth between these a little bit more easily, not closing and opening screens, and be able to go back. So if I want to go all the way back and scan an item or check something in the verification, you can go back without having to close screens and reopen screens. There is also a drop-down menu over here in this specific module. It's going to just give you a little bit more where if you're doing different price levels, you can view the different price levels. So you can go through if you have 1, 2, 3, 4 on the price levels. The other modules, looking at those, we have the buying module. The buying module is also one that's heavily used. So it's the purchase order, the receiving, and the deliveries, what we just went through. It's the same idea where if you're going to go in and you're going to be creating the documents, receiving documents, DSD documents. However, when you're navigating between these, so if you're going into, we'll just use DSD, it's going to immediately go into what's open. So these are all the suspended documents that you can reopen. You can go through the list and find one that, oh, this is the one I was working on earlier. But if you do want to add it, or you can also search up here if you're searching for a specific document, but you do have the ability up here to go ahead and add one. So you're not having to select if you're opening or creating one at the beginning, you're going in and it's immediately saying, open a DSD, look for an existing one before you open a new one. I don't see an existing one, so you can go up and hit plus, find your vendor and create a new one. You can always search, you can always filter, however it is that works best. I'm just going to go into my open vendor, and then I can go into the header and start scanning in my items. So right here, it opens up a new document and you can immediately start scanning in new items to add. So pretty much same idea as before. Oh, sorry about that. I went back into, there we go. So you can go ahead and start scanning items right into the document. I had too many things. I must have hit a button that was open at the bottom. There we go. I think I had a few too many tabs down at the bottom and I hit the tab button instead of the enter button on accident. So once you're going through and you've added in all of the items, you can come back to the item header. You can look at the invoice total. Since I did a DSD document, we have to go ahead and make a payment before we can close the document, or we can suspend the document and do all the payment in the back, whatever works easiest. The other thing, just like with the PDA, there is configuration options available. If you go into the configuration right here, this will allow you to change configuration. So you would need the access code to go in and make any configuration changes, but it's pretty similar to what we were looking at before, where you can have a default order quantity and a default, well, go to exist setting. So if you wanted to, after you scan an item, have its default quantity of 1 be ordered or default quantity of 1 be received, you can have that in here or change that. And if you wanted to go to the existing line, that's available here as well. Same idea where if you make any changes, you can save those changes up here and create a profile. You can give the profile a name, or you can do 1 enter to do the default profile. These also exist in the inventory module. So just going back to the inventory module, you have the open or new document. This does not go right into the document simply because there is some other options with the inquiry that's in here, but you can easily go in here and create a new document or open an existing document, and we can look at some of the configuration settings as well. The difference with PDA and with the Mfloor is that the Mfloor PDA settings is actually an E-suite now. The Mfloor settings are an E-suite now. So if you're looking to look at all of the settings, and I'm going to zoom out a little bit because I zoomed in just so it'll make it a little bit clearer. So if you're looking to look at all of the settings that are available, they are now in eSuite. So you need to go into the Mfloor profile in eSuite, and they are all set up in here. So if you wanted to look at all of those settings in more of a general term, the same idea exists right here. These were the ones we were just looking at with receiving. You have the default quantity and yes, go to line. If you're looking at the store scan, you have a little bit more where you have the label quantity. The labels, again, you can set the default printer and the default print label template, and you can go through and set up all of those in here as well. Same idea as what's on the handheld, it's just a little bit easier back here. And then you can name the profile and you can save the profile and assign it to the operators the same way. So with that, that's really what I wanted to go over. Just kind of, like I said, some general navigation and best practices on the handheld, and then just some of the ideas and the settings that you can put into the profile for each of them to customize, let's say, in a little bit, each user's experience with using the handheld. So that way you can make the handheld work properly for each user that's using it and change the behavior for each user that's using it. So with that, Angel, did any questions come in?
Yes, we had a few questions come in. So the first question is there an ability to take / add item pictures with either interface?
Yes, there is the ability with the Mfloor. It's a little difficult for me to show because I don't have a camera attached. But when you're doing maintenance on the Mfloor, you can go into products and you can, I'm just going to pull up a product. Up here, there is the ability to take an item picture. So when I was going through the verification and the modification, there's an item picture. I don't have the button to take a picture because I'm on a computer and it doesn't work with that, unfortunately, but you can choose the file. It would be a pop-up. So instead of choosing a file, you would be able to just take a picture of it and go ahead and update it right here. Or if you're on a computer and you have files somewhere stored somewhere on the computer, you can just choose it. But if you're on a handheld that does have a camera and the ability to take pictures, you can come into this screen and actually take pictures to add thumbnails or whatever detailed pictures that you would like to for the items so that you can populate on the back office and on your flips charts.
Okay, and we also have a few more questions. What devices can we run PDA / Mfloor on?
For both of those, we do recommend Data Logic handhelds for those. They do operate best, we'll say, on those kind of units. But they really will operate with most web-based or Android units.
Okay, also, how do you close an inventory count on the PDA?
So on the PDA, let me exit here. Sorry, I only have one session, so I need to exit and enter on here. We usually suggest that when you're doing an inventory count that you're going to want to go through and do that in the back. But if you are looking to do an inventory count, I'll just open one really quick right here. So as you're adding in the items and entering in your counts, you can go back to this button down here that says INV. This will bring you back to your main inventory screen. And you can go into more and close your document right here. Just remember, suspending the document will make it so you can add more items and the count isn't finalized. When you go into more and you click on close documents, this will close the document and update your counts of what you just counted. So if you wanted to spot check it, you might just remember that after you close the document, it's already been affected, but it's right there.
We have another question which I can answer. Does STCR offer mobile printers for instant label printing? Yes, we do. We use the Zebra printer, and which we can get you a quote for. So if you have any questions after this, there's a email that comes out. Just respond all, and we can get you a quote for that. As for the next question, do we need to purchase nodes to use Mfloor?
No, Mfloor uses multi-sessions, same as the PDA. That's why I had to log out and in.
And then the last question that we have is, if we use the inventory module to count a section, can you use multiple handhelds and the count merge into one count file?
Yes, you can do that. Actually, what you can do with the inventory in both, since I have the PDA logged in, but when you can actually create the document and then you can have everybody open the same document to work on. Or with the handheld, the way that the handhelds work with inventory. So I'm just going to go into inventory. Again, this is the same idea as the Mfloor. I'm logged into PDA, but you can open an existing document and go into that document, and another user can log in and open that same transaction number and log into it. The other part with inventory is that with the handheld, you are always doing what's called a multi-count with inventory. So when you're doing a multi-count with inventory, if you open up the documents on the same day, it will actually add the counts together. So because it's multi-count, that means that it's assuming that you're counting the item in multiple spots. I hate using the same word when I'm explaining it, but so if somebody's counting the back and somebody's counting the front, it will take those two documents and put the number together for you. But if you want to keep it in one document like this, that's how you can do that. Have somebody create the document to begin with today, and then everybody else can just open that document when they're coming in. So I'll just go back to the main menu. So when you're going into inventory, you would just pick, instead of new document, have one person do the new document, then everybody else would say open document and find that open document, that transaction number they were working on in the list. And you have the date right over here to make it easier to find if you're got a lot of open documents like I do. And like I said, again, I can show you on the Mfloor, same idea. So you go into the inventory module, it's open/new document. You would just find that new document or that open document right here that somebody created. You can see this is tied together. So that way I can be in here and somebody else can be in the same document with two different handhelds.
So I think that was our last question, Jen. I haven't seen any more pop up. So next month we'll be hosting our Lunch and Learn Thursday, February 29th. We'll be reviewing eSuite navigation. For those who don't know, eSuite is LOCK's newest user interface, and we're excited for everyone to learn more. Also, look out for some additional Toshiba sponsored webinars. Our self-checkout monthly master series starts February 8th and will occur every 4 weeks after. Thank you all for joining us, and have a great day.